up on Primetime News. As Korea's ruling party and the presidential office meet tomorrow to repair relations, lawmakers are expected to push for greater amnesty for business tycoons during the meeting. It looks like the historic Iranian nuclear deal will not have any major implications for North Korea. As the U.S. State Department says, talks will only occur if Pyongyang takes credible steps toward denuclearization. China's second quarter growth beats forecasts as stimulus measures kick in. The world's second largest economy expands 7% in the April to June period. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Wednesday, July 15th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us.
Ending weeks of impasse with the ruling party over disputed revisions to the National Assembly law, President Park Geun-hye has invited the party leadership for talks tomorrow, Thursday, here in Korea.
Both the president and the party will be seeking to mend ties to speed up the administration's efforts to revive the country's economy. Our Choi You-sun starts us off.
President Park Geun-hye is expected to emphasize the need to have a strong cooperative relationship between the presidential office and the ruling Saenuri Party when she meets the party leadership at her office on Thursday. The relationship soured over the president's veto of revisions to the National Assembly law and the resignation of former party floor leader Yoo Seung-min. Emphasis on renewing top office party relations comes as President Park needs to move forward in her drive for economic revival nearing the midpoint of her term in office. And this was reflected when President Park asked her newly appointed political secretary to work on improving ties with the party and the National Assembly for the sake of the public's interest. The president is expected to urge the ruling party to work with the opposition to promptly pass the post-Mer supplementary budget bill through parliament, as well as other long-awaited bills concerning the people's livelihoods. The party, which elected a new floor leader this week, will likely pledge its support.
We should ensure the supplementary budget is promptly approved at the right time to help the nation's economy overcome the fallout from the MERS outbreak and the recent drought.
The party is also pushing to immediately normalize consultative channels with the presidential office and even having the president and party leader Kim Moo-sung meet on a regular basis. Also on Thursday, the party plans to ask the president to include businessmen and politicians when she grants pardons around the time of Korea's Liberation Day next month.
Amnesty is a very timely decision for national unity and economic recovery.
President Park, whose campaign pledge included a limited exercise of amnesty, especially for those serving corruption sentences, said pardons would be necessary for national development and unity. In display of her faith in the party, President Park is also expected to have a one-on-one meeting with party leader Kim Moo-sung separately. Choi You-sun, Arirang News.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy is delving into allegations the nation's spy agency wiretaps citizens using a smartphone hacking tool. The Liberal camp's commission to investigate the allegations is headed by An Chul-soo, a former presidential candidate and an IT expert specializing in antivirus software. On Tuesday, National Intelligence Service Chief Lee Byung-ho confirmed that its organization bought the tool in 2012 from Italian surveillance malware vendor Hacking Team. But he said the purchase was made to monitor North Korean spies. Take a look at what the Liberal Party's chairman had to say about this.
If the intelligence agency's activities turn out to be illegal, we will reform the agency and improve the system so that the public can feel secure about continuing on with their daily lives. In addition, we believe it is desirable for the National Assembly, which has a right to ask the agency to disclose information on this matter, to investigate the allegations. We hope the Saenuri Party agrees to cooperate with the investigation.
Speaking at a parliamentary judiciary committee meeting on Wednesday, Justice Minister Kim Hyun-ung said his ministry will also look into allegations to find out whether the prosecution needs to get involved. Meanwhile, the ruling Saenuri Party senior spokesperson Kim Young-woo said the same day that a more prudent approach is needed until all facts are verified, as cyberspace could now pose a major security threat to the nation.
The groundbreaking nuclear deal between Iran, the United States, and other major world powers is fueling hope North Korea's nuclear issue could also be resolved through dialogue. But Washington says Pyongyang must first take clear and verifiable steps before any talks can be held. Our Han Da-eun explains further.
Soon after striking the historic deal with Iran, the U.S. State Department said Washington is also ready for talks with North Korea on its nuclear issue. But on one condition, Pyongyang first needs to take credible actions that can convince the U.S. that it's serious about abandoning its stockpile of nuclear weapons. South Korea's Yonhap News Agency reports that when asked about what the Iran deal means for North Korea, State Department spokesman John Kirby said it clearly demonstrates Washington's willingness to engage countries with which it has long-standing differences. But he cautioned against a direct comparison, saying Iran has actively engaged in talks for years, whereas North Korea tries to set up talks while continuing to develop its nuclear weapons program. The spokesman reiterated Washington's stance that the U.S. will return to the negotiating table as long as the talks can be authentic and credible, get at the entirety of the North's nuclear program, and result in concrete and irreversible steps toward denuclearization. Kirby also told reporters that Washington is maintaining close contact with South Korea as well as the regional powers, namely China, Japan, and Russia, to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue in a peaceful manner. The so-called six-party talks designed to denuclearize North Korea haven't been held since 2008. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Korea and the U.S. have agreed to come up with comprehensive ways to prevent another shipment of live anthrax to South Korea, like the one in spring. This came during their biannual meeting on implementing the bilateral status of forces agreement on Wednesday in Seoul. Live anthrax samples were accidentally shipped from a U.S. lab and distributed to the Osan Air Force Base in late April. Other issues up for talks were the accident at a U.S. shooting range in Gyeonggi-do province in March that injured a local resident, and the legal status of the roughly 28,000 American troops stationed in South Korea.
New growth figures show that the Chinese economy is rolling along, growing at a faster than expected pace in the second quarter this year. This as the country's stimulus measures kicked in. Our Shin Se-min tells us more.
China's economy is back on track, growing 7% in the second quarter and beating market expectations that it would drop into the 6% range. The figure still suggests the lowest level of growth since the global financial crisis in 2009, but meets China's target of roughly 7% for this year.
The Chinese government is capable and has the confidence to prevent the regional and systematic risks from happening. It is also capable and has the right conditions and the confidence to promote the stable development of the stock market and the domestic economy.
The country's Statistics Bureau said the second quarter figure was driven in part by better than expected employment figures, but added that further actions would be needed to strengthen the economy. Meanwhile, industrial output jumped 6.8% in June, up 0.7 percentage points from the previous month. The rosier statistics have been attributed to the central bank stimulus policies, which have helped put a floor under the Chinese economy. The central bank has slashed its benchmark rate 4 times since last November as part of efforts to shore up the slowing economy after seeing its quarterly GDP growth drop steadily from 7.8 in 2013. Despite beating expectations, there are lingering concerns about the government's handling of the recent stock market crash that led share prices to tumble over 30% last month. That's given rise to questions about whether President Xi Jinping's so-called China dream of building a rich and powerful nation is merely that, nothing more than an unachievable dream. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
To keep its lead amid the rising competition in the global market, more Korean shipbuilders are outfitting their vessels with smart functions. What's more, Korea has launched a new innovation center in the shipbuilding capital of Ulsan, just north of Busan. Hwang Ji-hye reports.
The new center is aimed at revamping production lines to create ships that are both smart and eco-friendly. The technology for both can now be loaded onto vessels weighing several hundred tons. Korea is seeking to expand innovations like these and turn them into growth engines for the economy while cementing its position in the global shipbuilding industry.
스마트 선박도 2020년까지 시장 규모가 530억 달러로 확대될 예정인 것으로 알고 있습니다. 스마트 선박은 스마트폰과 마찬가지로 다양한 아이디어를 기반으로 한 소프트웨어 개발이 핵심입니다. 울산 센터에서는 현대 중공업이 세계 최초로 개발한 스마트 선박 프로그램 개발 지원 시스템을 전면 개방해서 누구나 자유롭고 쉽게 소프트웨어를 개발할 수 있는 환경을 제공하게 될 것입니다.
Korea built the world's first smart ship in 2011 and has since landed contracts for more than 200 smart ships. The first generation of smart ships could perform simple functions like navigation, monitoring, and control. But the next generation of ships will include the technology for automated shipping, which is already in demand among ship operators because of the potential for reducing operating costs and saving fuel. Korea's three major shipbuilders, Samsung Heavy Industries, Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, and Hyundai Heavy Industries, the latter of which will be in charge of the new Innovation Center, have a combined 2,500 patents for building smart ships like these and more. In conjunction with the Ulsan Center, they plan to share the patents with local startups and small and mid-sized companies seeking to develop similar software. The center will also help turn shipyards into smart yards and help smaller firms enhance efficiency in their production lines through consultations with the large conglomerates. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
A decade has now passed since Korea launched its first low-cost carrier. And it's fair to say the budget carriers had some problems in the early stages, but they're thriving now thanks to their cheap airfares and solid reputation for safety. Kim Min-ji has more.
It's been 10 years since Jeju Air, Korea's first low-cost carrier, got off the ground. Despite some early setbacks, it wasn't long before others, Jin Air, T-Way, Air Busan, and E-Star, jumped into the market. Now they've become a popular choice for air travelers.
Low-cost carriers have grown an average of 6% every year since 2010 to account for more than half of all domestic flights. Now their focus is on boosting their presence on international routes.
Currently, some carriers offer flights to popular travel destinations like Guam or Bangkok, and plans are in motion to even go as far as Hawaii. Their success can be attributed to the low-cost factor. Companies stripped away services such as in-flight meals and amenities like blankets and toiletries to keep prices as low as possible.
I'm obviously using the service because it's cheap, and this time around I got an even better deal with a promotional discount.
I'm a student, so I was looking for cheap flights and came across this airline. I don't really mind if they don't offer conventional services because my trip is short.
However, Korean consumers weren't all that positive when budget airlines first launched, as it was generally thought that cheap meant less safe. Many carriers had small fleets comprised of older planes, and with a packed flight schedule, it was hard to keep up cabin maintenance.
Although some may think low-cost carriers may compromise safety for cheap fares, that's not the case for us. We abide by the government's safety regulations as well as international standards.
Experts expect the low-cost airline boom to continue as long as companies are able to adjust their strategies and stay ahead of aviation and tourism industry trends.
It's not like these budget carriers can deploy planes that can carry hundreds of people. So rather than focus on long-haul flights, they should focus on gaining competitiveness in short-range flights to popular destinations in Asia.
The local industry is forecast to grow 3- to 4-fold over the next 10 years. Despite the projected explosion in growth, experts say the government should support local budget carriers as foreign players have their eyes on the Korean market.
김민지, Arirang News.
And the Korean government's efforts to curb smoking seems to be working as the country's smoking rate has dropped by nearly 6 percentage points in recent months. A phone survey conducted by Gallup Korea showed smoking rate in Korean men had decreased to 35% over the months of May and June from the 40.8% reported last year. The survey was conducted on more than 2,500 Korean adults at the request of the country's health ministry. The results also indicated that about 1 in 7 of those who used to light it up have quit smoking in less than a year. About 2 out of 3 people who kicked the habit cited the price hike on cigarettes as the main reason for quitting. With that, the number of visitors to smoking cessation clinics also jumped to over 400,000 people from May to June, more than twice the number from a year ago. Korea has selected a China-led consortium as the most preferred bidder to salvage Seolho, the passenger ferry that sank off Korea's southeastern coast last year, killing more than 300 people. Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries says it will begin negotiations on specific terms and methods of the lifting with China's state-run Shanghai Salvage next Monday. The consortium, which consists of 2 firms, Shanghai Salvage and Korea's own Ocean CNI, suggested 85 billion won, or roughly $74 million for the contract. It plans to complete the salvage by July next year. After months of intense debates, the Korean government has decided to raise the sunken ferry in April. Arirang TV, the station you're watching, has signed an exciting new deal with the United Nations to launch a 24-hour channel on the UN in-house network. It becomes the first Korean channel to establish a 5-year partnership with the UN and joins a host of other international news channels like CNN and BBC World. Our Hwang Ji-hye has this report.
Arirang TV will now reach viewers at the UN headquarters in New York. Arirang TV CEO Bang Seok-ho signed a memorandum of understanding with UN Undersecretary General Christina Galak on Tuesday, announcing the launch of a 24-hour channel on the UN in-house network.
That will enhance the knowledge, the understanding of the Republic of Korea and the region here. The media outlets available through the UN in-house network can be viewed by many staff members, diplomats, visiting government officials. You mentioned about key opinion leaders.
Attending the MOU signing ceremony, South Korean ambassador to the UN, Oh Jun, noted the significance of this historic agreement.
Arirang TV, as Korea's prime English language broadcaster, I'm certain that it will lead the way to enhance communications between the United Nations and the Korean people. And in Korea as well, through this new initiative.
Seoul has been mired in years of historical dispute with Tokyo and has been promoting the importance and benefits of a reunified Korea to the international community. To better introduce Korea's perspective on various issues, Arirang TV will broadcast a mix of news and current affairs program that cater to the UN network. Arirang TV CEO Bang Seok-ho vowed the channel will strive to become the voice of Korea across the globe.
Just like our new slogan, the world on Arirang, we pledge to the bridge that connects Korea and the world through our quality programs.
Arirang TV is the first Korean channel to establish the 5-year partnership with the UN headquarters. Other international news channels available on the UN network include CNN International, BBC World, and Al Jazeera, among others. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon also welcomed Arirang TV to the United Nations, expressing his hopes for the channel to soon play a key role in bridging the gap between Korea and the UN. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News, New York.
And now for the top international news headlines, we connect to our Lee Sun-ho at the News Center.
Our focus today, Greece's deputy finance minister resigns just ahead of a crucial vote for a bailout package. A controversial defense bill in Japan passes, and a Kenyan mall is set to reopen 2 years after bloody massacre.
Let's first go to Europe, as it appears that a number of incidents have taken place regarding Greece's third bailout package. Another big mover and shaker there has decided to call it quits. Could you give us the latest there, Sun-ho?
That's right, Daniel. A dizzying series of events took place in Europe just ahead of a critical vote regarding reforms for a third bailout deal for Greece, as one of the nation's deputy finance ministers resigned. Deputy Finance Minister Nadia Valavani wrote in a letter that she could no longer remain as a member of Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras's cabinet, explaining that the demand for stringent measures in exchange for a bailout package would place the nation on a path of decline. Earlier on Wednesday morning, Greece's lawmakers gathered to discuss and later vote on the most pressing issues. However, some lawmakers seem to echo the finance minister's views.
We're aware that these are tough measures, painful measures. However, right now, the alternatives that the government and the Prime Minister have would lead the country to an uncontrolled bankruptcy. We couldn't take responsibility for this, and the Greek people are not prepared for this.
The shocking resignation just came hours before the European Commission proposed a conditional multi-billion US dollar bridge financing loan to Greece this month, once Athens agreed to enact reforms. However, on the other hand, the IMF expressed its staunch disapproval of the bailout deal, saying that the nation's public debt was unsustainable and urged for debt relief on a massive scale. The IMF said that a new bailout should include measures to restructure the country's debt. A panel of Japan's lower house approved a controversial security bill on Wednesday that just might allow troops to fight outside the country again for the first time since the end of World War II. The legislation, however, was not met without resistance from the opposition party and regular voters. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe claimed that due to new challenges and a rising China, greater security measures are needed, a position that's also shared by Washington. Those opposing the bill retorted by saying that this would be in direct conflict with Japan's long-standing pacifist constitution and that would cause the nation to get involved in possible U.S.-led conflicts in the future. The full lower house is expected to approve the legislation this week before moving on into the upper chamber. The bill comes as Abe's disapproval rate rose 5 points up to 42%, according to a newspaper poll on July 12th, compared to an approval rate of just 39%. The Prime Minister has been a strong advocate of boosting Japan's defenses and reviving the stagnant economy since taking office. And the Westgate shopping mall in Kenya is set to reopen over the weekend, almost 2 years after more than 60 people were massacred in a killing spree. 4 gunmen barged into the mall fully loaded with grenades and guns and wreaked havoc, terrorizing shoppers and severely damaging the building. Due to the incident, many businesses saw massive losses, and a mall that was once a symbol of Kenya's economic prosperity soon turned into a sign of the nation's insecurity. The tragedy was carried out by Somali's Al-Shabaab militia in September 2013. The Nairobi governor said that the city's security had been improved to prepare for U.S. President Barack Obama's trip to the country later in the month. Since the attack, Al-Shabaab has carried out a stream of attacks on Kenya. For instance, last November, gunmen hijacked a bus and killed over 20 people. Now, this brings the death total in Kenya to more than 400 over the past 2 years. And that does it for your international news today. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.
The mercury in Seoul soared to 33.9 this afternoon, and it seems like it's going to be another hot one tomorrow, but not as hot as today, while the eastern parts of the country will have a cooler and breezier day with light rain in the forecast. And the 11th typhoon of the season, Nanka, is heading to the coast of Okinawa, and by Saturday, the Korean peninsula will be directly affected by the typhoon. So those of you who are planning to head out to the east coast this weekend, take these weather conditions into account. Now going back to tomorrow's forecast, daily high here in Seoul and Gwangju will rise to 31, while Daegu and Busan will top out at 28 and 26. And as for the other regions, it seems like Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 31 and 26, while Dokdo peaks at 20. Now besides the eastern parts of the country, conditions will remain hot and humid for the time being with no rain in the forecast. Well, that's all for the weather. Good night.
It's more than just a cute exhibit. Apparently, the number of pandas there exactly reflect the number of pandas in existence in our world right now. So they're
very interesting.
Very much an endangered species, so we need to be aware of how little they are, how little in number they are in existence in our world. Well, that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you so much for staying with us. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Do join us at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.